Is that my wife?
Babe, don't. Just tell me she's wealthy and rich.
Just minutes before divorce, wife arrives in a limousine, husband panicked, mistress abandons him. Esteemed viewers, welcome to Luxurious True Life Stories. Please like and subscribe for more captivating luxury true stories. Let's get into the story. Rain fell steadily outside a closed bookstore where Sophia Tyler stood quietly under the narrow shelter, holding a small paper bag close to keep it dry. She dressed simply, blending into the grey evening like she wanted nothing from the world except peace. A man rushed through the storm and slipped near the curb before catching himself, laughing softly at his own clumsiness. He joined her under the shelter, slightly embarrassed but polite. "Rough night," he said, catching his breath. She nodded and shifted a little so he could stay dry. Neither tried to impress the other. The rain created a calm silence that felt natural rather than awkward. Desmond Oliver checked his phone and sighed when his ride cancelled again. Sophia quietly offered him half of a pastry from her bag. He hesitated but accepted, hunger winning over pride. They spoke casually about work struggles, unreliable schedules, and the exhaustion of chasing stability. He mentioned he was trying to build a better future, but nothing seemed to stay steady. She listened more than she spoke, yet her responses were thoughtful and warm. The conversation felt strangely comfortable for two strangers meeting by chance. The rain slowed but neither rushed away. Desmond realized he hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. Sophia simply said she enjoyed quiet evenings and honest conversations. When the street lights reflected off the wet pavement, he thanked her for sharing the shelter and the food. She gave a small smile and wished him a safe trip home. They walked in opposite directions, unaware this simple meeting had already begun to change both their lives. Morning sunlight filled a small cafe near the bus stop where Sophia sat reading quietly. Desmond entered and noticed her immediately, surprised by the second meeting. She greeted him calmly, and they shared a table because it was crowded. He admitted he was tired from work and only needed coffee to survive the day. The conversation stayed simple and easy. When the bill came, Desmond tried to pay with coins, but the cashier said it was already settled. He looked at Sophia, who continued reading as if nothing happened. She didn't want him embarrassed. He thanked her sincerely, promising to return the favor someday. Around her, he felt relaxed instead of pressured. Outside, people rushed past while they stood a moment longer. He said he might come again since mornings felt better talking to her. She nodded softly. They left in different directions, now aware the meetings were becoming intentional rather than coincidence. A week later Desmond carried a box up the narrow stairs of a cheap apartment building, breathing hard as the hallway lights flickered. His key stuck in the door across from Sophia's unit, and she opened hers at the same time, surprised but amused. He laughed awkwardly and admitted he had just moved in because the rent was all he could afford. She welcomed him simply and helped hold the door while he pushed the box inside. The apartment was small, thin walls, barely furnished, yet he looked relieved just to have a place. That evening the power suddenly went out across the building. Tenants complained in the hallway, but Sophia calmly brought out candles and invited him to sit on the floor while they waited. They shared noodles she had cooked earlier, talking about daily routines and noisy neighbors. Without phones or lights, the conversation felt honest and unguarded. Desmond realized he hadn't enjoyed silence like this in years. When electricity returned, neither hurried back inside. He thanked her for making the unfamiliar place feel less lonely. She said neighbors should help each other. As they closed their doors, the thin wall between them no longer felt like distance but comfort, someone trustworthy living only steps away. Late that night the building stayed quiet except for faint traffic outside. Desmond couldn't sleep and stepped into the hallway, finding Sophia sitting on the staircase with a mug of tea. She said she liked the calm hours when the world stopped demanding things. He sat beside her, admitting he worried constantly about his future and feared remaining ordinary forever. The dim light made the conversation feel private and sincere. They spoke about goals. Desmond wanted success, recognition, a life where he never had to struggle again. Sophia said she only wanted loyalty and peace, a life where people stayed even when circumstances changed. He laughed gently, saying money solved most problems. She didn't argue, only smiled thoughtfully. Neither realized how different those dreams truly were. When they finally returned to their apartments, the night felt lighter. Desmond noticed he trusted her more than anyone he had known for years. Sophia quietly hoped the kindness she saw in him would remain. Both believed they understood each other, unaware the future would test every word spoken on that staircase. The next afternoon the landlord argued loudly with Sophia in the hallway about late maintenance fees she never actually owed. His voice echoed through the building until Desmond stepped out and calmly demanded proof. The landlord backed down under the attention of other tenants. Sophia thanked him quietly after everyone dispersed, surprised someone defended her without hesitation. He shrugged it off but stayed to make sure she was all right. They decided to walk to a nearby food stand, the tension fading into laughter over simple meals. Conversation flowed easier than before, no awkward pauses, no careful words. Desmond admitted he looked forward to seeing her every day. Sophia confessed she felt the same comfort around him. The honesty lingered between them, gentle and real. Under the evening lights he finally asked if she would like to be more than neighbors and friends. She agreed softly, smiling in a way he had never seen before. Nothing dramatic followed, only a quiet understanding that their lives were now connected. For the first time, both felt they had found something steady in an unstable world. Weeks passed peacefully until Desmond mentioned a company he wished he could work for but said they would never notice someone like him. The next day he received an unexpected interview email. He rushed home excited, telling Sophia every detail while she listened with calm interest. She only encouraged him to be confident and honest. The interview went smoothly, and he returned amazed at how welcoming the managers were. A few days later he was hired. Desmond celebrated with cheap takeout and genuine joy, convinced luck had finally chosen him. Sophia congratulated him warmly, asking about his co-workers and responsibilities. He spoke about opportunity and the possibility of a better life. She simply said she believed he would do well. As his schedule grew busier, he left earlier and returned later, but still knocked on her door each night just to talk. He thanked her for always supporting him. She smiled, knowing she had quietly opened that door for him, yet never hinting at it. To him, success had begun through hard work alone, and that belief slowly started changing him. Only months into the job, Desmond received a sudden promotion. He rushed home carrying documents he barely understood, laughing in disbelief. Sophia listened as he explained his new office and higher salary, his voice filled with pride he couldn't hide. He said life was finally moving forward and promised things would improve for both of them. She congratulated him sincerely, though she noticed his confidence had sharpened. He began dressing differently, speaking faster, thinking about schedules and meetings even during dinner. Conversations shifted from feelings to achievements. He talked about reputation, image, and the importance of standing out among co-workers. Sophia supported him but quietly missed the slower evenings they once shared. That night he left early for a company gathering and returned late, still energized. He apologized for the changing routine, saying success demanded sacrifice. She nodded gently, telling him she understood. Yet as the hallway light faded behind his door, she sensed the first distance growing between them, small but undeniable. Desmond's office life expanded quickly, and he began spending lunches with wealthy co-workers who discussed investments, cars, and exclusive clubs. One afternoon they asked about his personal life, and he hesitated before describing Sophia only briefly, avoiding details. He laughed along when they joked that relationships slowed ambition. The conversation stayed light, but he carried the discomfort home with him. That evening Sophia asked how his day went. He answered shortly, distracted by messages from colleagues planning another outing. When she suggested cooking together like before, he declined, saying he needed to maintain connections for his career. She agreed, though the apartment felt quieter than usual. Later he apologized for being busy, explaining success required fitting into a certain world. She smiled and told him to focus on his goals. Still, after he closed his door, she stood in the hallway a moment longer, realizing the life he was entering did not include the simple routines they once shared. The company hosted an evening event in a bright downtown hall, filled with polished floors and confident laughter. Desmond invited Sophia, but suggested she keep things simple so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. When co-workers asked who she was, he paused and introduced her as a friend from his apartment building. The words stayed in the air longer than expected. Sophia kept a gentle smile, though the meaning was clear. Throughout the night he spoke with executives while she stood quietly near the balcony, watching city lights. Pamela Jones approached him, elegant and confident, easily matching the atmosphere. They talked about business goals and future plans, and Desmond seemed eager to impress her. Sophia observed from a distance, understanding without confrontation. On the ride home he thanked her for attending and said work environments could be complicated. She nodded softly and said she understood professional appearances mattered. Yet the silence afterward felt heavier than any argument, because nothing had been openly wrong, but something important had shifted. Soon after, Desmond was offered a company residence, a spacious mansion provided for senior staff. He returned home overwhelmed with excitement, already imagining a different life. Sophia listened quietly while he described wide rooms and a private office. He said moving there would prove he had truly succeeded. She agreed calmly and helped him pack their simple belongings. The new house felt unfamiliar to him, luxurious and quiet. He spoke about upgrading furniture and improving appearances for visitors. When she walked through the rooms comfortably, he assumed she was simply adapting well. He asked her to dress more formally when colleagues visited so she would fit the environment. She nodded without arguing. That night he stood by the large window, proud of what he believed he earned. Sophia watched him, understanding how much the environment influenced his thinking. The house belonged to her, yet she let him celebrate it as his victory. The distance between them grew, hidden beneath polished floors and bright lights. Pamela Jones began visiting the office more often, confident and perfectly styled. She spoke fluently about market trends and expansion plans, drawing attention wherever she stood. Desmond admired how easily she blended into the corporate world he was trying to master. Their conversations extended beyond meetings into lunches and late emails. She praised his ambition, telling him he deserved more visibility. At home, Sophia noticed the shift in his tone whenever Pamela's name appeared in conversation. He described her as intelligent and forward-thinking, someone who understood business deeply. Sophia listened without reacting, though she recognized the subtle comparison forming. Desmond began staying later at the office, claiming networking was necessary. Pamela's presence became frequent in his daily routine. She encouraged him to aim higher positions and hinted that relationships could sometimes limit growth. Desmond absorbed her words carefully. Meanwhile, Sophia remained steady, unaware that admiration was slowly turning into emotional distance shaped by ambition and influence. Desmond began noticing small differences between Sophia and Pamela. Pamela understood business language, dressed sharply, and discussed future investments with ease. One evening he suggested Sophia attend a formal dinner, but hinted she should change her style first. She quietly agreed and wore a simple, elegant outfit, yet he still seemed distracted beside her. During the dinner, Pamela led most conversations, while Desmond followed proudly. Sophia remained polite, speaking only when asked. On the way home he said she should try to be more outgoing in professional spaces. She accepted the comment without argument, though her silence carried weight. Later that night he reviewed work notes while she sat nearby reading. He mentioned how compatibility mattered in long-term success. Sophia closed her book gently and wished him good night. The room felt calm, but the warmth between them had cooled into careful distance, neither openly addressed. Days turned into routines of quiet coexistence. Desmond woke early for meetings and returned late, with brief conversations replacing long talks. Meals were no longer shared regularly. Schedules rarely matched. Sophia kept the home peaceful, leaving small notes wishing him a good day, though he often read them hours later. The house felt large and empty despite two people living inside. One evening they sat in the same room yet focused on different things, he on reports, she on a novel. The silence lasted longer than comfort allowed. He said work pressure was temporary and once stability came, things would improve. She nodded gently but didn't respond further, sensing words would not change the direction already forming. Before sleeping he thanked her for understanding his dedication. She replied that she hoped he remained happy with his choices. Neither argued, neither complained, but the quiet distance had become clearer than any conflict. What once felt natural now felt maintained, as if both were holding a connection already slipping away. Their anniversary arrived quietly, marked on Sophia's calendar with a small circle. She prepared dinner carefully, setting the table near the large window and waiting as evening turned dark. Messages from Desmond remained short, meetings delayed, then extended again. Hours passed and the food cooled untouched. She stayed seated, calm but thoughtful, watching the city lights below. Late that night he finally returned, still speaking about business plans and opportunities from a dinner he attended with Pamela and other executives. Only after removing his jacket did he notice the table arrangement. He paused, realizing the date too late. He apologized quickly, saying work obligations couldn't be avoided at his level. Sophia cleared the plates quietly and told him it was all right. No argument followed, no raised voice. She simply wished him rest and went to another room. Desmond stood alone a moment, unsure why the silence felt heavier than anger. The evening ended with distance growing stronger than any words spoken. The next days carried an uneasy calm. Desmond spent most of his time discussing future plans with Pamela, who encouraged him to think beyond his current life. One evening he asked Sophia to sit with him in the living room, his tone formal rather than warm. He explained that ambition required difficult decisions and sometimes relationships held people back from reaching their full potential. Sophia listened without interruption. He continued, saying their lives were moving in different directions and perhaps space would help both of them grow. His words were careful, almost rehearsed, avoiding emotion. She looked at him steadily and asked if this meant he wanted separation. He hesitated briefly before agreeing. She accepted quietly, surprising him. There were no tears, only a calm understanding. He said it would be best to proceed respectfully and handle everything legally. She nodded and wished him clarity in his future. As she left the room, Desmond felt relief mixed with something unfamiliar, a faint uncertainty he chose to ignore while convincing himself he had made the right choice. Within days Desmond officially filed for divorce, confident the decision was logical. Pamela congratulated him, speaking about new beginnings and opportunities ahead. He focused on paperwork, timelines, and the belief that life would soon become simpler. Sophia cooperated calmly, signing documents without resistance, which reassured him further. Friends from the company supported him, praising his focus on growth. He began planning future events Pamela suggested, imagining a life that matched the image he had been building. The legal date was set, and he expected the process to end quietly. Sophia made no effort to argue or negotiate, keeping her usual composure. The night before the hearing he barely slept, not from doubt but anticipation. He believed he was stepping fully into success, leaving behind a phase that no longer fit his future. Meanwhile Sophia prepared separately, peaceful and certain. Neither spoke that night, yet both knew the next morning would permanently change everything. Morning gathered outside the courthouse, cold and orderly. Desmond arrived early with Pamela, both confident and composed. She'd discussed plans afterward, already imagining celebrations once everything ended. He agreed, feeling relief near. The building doors opened, people moved in and out, and the process seemed routine. Moments before their case was called, a long black limousine stopped near the entrance. Several people turned, noticing the elegance out of place in the quiet street. The door opened and Sophia stepped out, dressed with calm sophistication that transformed her presence completely. She walked forward steadily, acknowledging no one in particular. Desmond stared, unable to understand what he was seeing. Pamela's expression changed instantly from certainty to confusion. Sophia passed them without greeting and entered the courthouse first. The atmosphere shifted from predictable to uncertain, and for the first time that morning, Desmond felt genuine unease replacing his earlier confidence. Inside the courtroom the atmosphere felt different from what Desmond expected. Representatives he had only seen in executive meetings stood respectfully near Sophia. Documents were presented, and the ownership records were read clearly. The mansion, the company, and the position he held all traced back to her authority. His promotion history appeared as approvals signed under her direction. The quiet room made every word heavier. His employment termination was issued immediately as part of the legal separation of assets. Pamela stepped back, shocked, realizing the status she admired no longer existed. Her confidence faded and she quietly distanced herself, offering no support. Desmond tried to speak but found no explanation that fit the truth now laid out before him. Sophia remained composed, simply confirming the proceedings and wishing closure to be respectful. She neither mocked nor blamed him. As the session ended, she left calmly while people followed her instructions. Desmond remained seated longer than necessary, understanding that everything he believed he had earned had always been hers, and now it was gone. News of the courtroom outcome spread quickly through the corporate circle. Desmond's calls went unanswered, and messages that once received instant replies now remained silent. Pamela avoided him entirely, offering only a brief statement that she needed stability in her life. Invitations disappeared, and former colleagues treated him like a distant memory. The confidence he once carried felt misplaced in ordinary spaces. He returned to the mansion to collect remaining belongings, but was received formally and escorted out after gathering his personal items. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a place he had misunderstood. Without title or position, everyday tasks seemed unfamiliar. He began searching for work again, facing the reality he once feared. For the first time, he reflected on the quiet evenings in the small apartment and the sincerity he once valued. Regret arrived not as drama, but as steady realization. Success built without gratitude had dissolved quickly. Standing alone in a modest rented room days later, he finally understood that ambition without loyalty had cost him more than wealth. Weeks passed and Sophia settled into a calmer routine, now openly leading her company with steady confidence. She redesigned parts of the business to support employees' well-being and spent quiet mornings reading again, just as she once had. Without hiding who she was, she felt lighter, surrounded by people who respected her for both kindness and strength. The past no longer weighed on her decisions. Desmond built a simpler life in a smaller neighborhood, working steadily and keeping mostly to himself. The noise of ambition had faded, replaced by careful reflection. He avoided places connected to his former status and focused on rebuilding honestly. Each day felt slower but clearer, teaching him patience he had never practiced before. One afternoon their paths crossed briefly across a busy street. Neither stopped, yet both understood the moment. She continued forward with peace, and he with acceptance. The chapter they shared had ended, leaving lessons instead of bitterness. Life moved on, hers with freedom, his with understanding, proving that love valued too late cannot be reclaimed but can still change a person's future. As this story comes to an end, remember that behind every luxury lies a truth you ever see. If this story moved you, support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until the next unforgettable true story, stay inspired and stay curious.